Welcome to another episode of the Sage Holistic Show. My name is Emily Sellis. I am your host, and I'm always so excited to bring to you guys learning opportunities from our holistic healers of Orange County. This is a professional networking group that I've been running for over 2 years, and it is just a happy spot in my heart. I love bringing people together. I'm a definite community builder, and this has been a really fun thing. And one of the great things about these meetings is that we do record the presentation so that I can share it with the whole world. I think it's so important for us to learn about alternative healing methods and different ways that people conceptualize how to work with clients, because this might be helpful for other professional healers to hear and know that, hey, maybe I can refer someone, or it's helpful for listeners who might be thinking like, this could be a healing method that could work for me, healer or non-healer person. So anyway, today I'm so excited to bring to you Nicole Zens, who is the owner of Held and Heard Therapy. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's going to be breaking it down for you on how to use EFT. This is a specific therapy utilized for couples. There are other, modalities that have been developed out of that for individuals and families and such, but she's going to be breaking it down for you today, really on how couples can be helped from this, and especially high conflict couples. So if this is you, or if you're interested in learning about how to resolve conflict in a relationship, have a listen. We would love to hear from you in the comments below how this lands for you or what your thoughts are on it. Stay tuned and enjoy the listen. Sage is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you. So I am Nicole Zens. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm an advanced trained emotionally focused therapist, and I specialize in couples, but I specifically specialize in high conflict couples. And I have my own private practice in Orange County, telehealth right now. So really anywhere in California. Called Held and Heard Therapy. So that is just a little bit about me. I use emotionally focused therapy, obviously, since I'm trained in that. And I'll give you a little bit more information about it for those of you who don't know. Let me figure out how to do. Oh, that's great. So emotionally focused therapy is one of the only couples therapy approaches that has lasting positive impact on romantic relationships. And that's because we go beyond just providing tools, like immediate tools for the couple to use. A lot of other couples therapy approaches will offer all these tools, but as time goes on, when they end therapy, those tools kind of start fading, and then the old dynamics will start coming back. So in emotionally focused therapy, we're not just I do provide my couples tools to provide immediate relief in symptoms, but really what we're doing is we're changing the foundation of the relationship and how you communicate and just relate to each other in moments of disagreement and just in a more deeper way. So with that being said, it is 90% effective with couples, 10% being couples that have waited too long, where one person's already basically considering leaving the relationship because of piles of resentment or really bad negative patterns that have lasted years. Now that's not obviously a hard and fast rule. I work with several couples that have been in relationships for like 50 years and they are doing incredible. So it is effective across cultures, and which is obviously helpful just so that we can make sure that we're treating everyone in a way that is effective for them. So EFT is based off of an attachment theory, which is a theory for child development. And it says that all humans crave safe and secure relationships with our attachment figures. So growing up, that's our parents, and into adulthood, that's our romantic partners. There's 4 types of attachment, and we'll go over these a little bit more. But in EFT, we're working with, most of the time, insecure attachments, and we're trying to create an earn, is what we call it. We try to earn security. So we're trying to earn a secure attachment with our partners. Because when we're not securely attached to our partners' behaviors can evoke
emotional reactions within us that lead us to engage in ineffective ways of relating. And so we'll talk about all of this a little bit more. Give you a brief overview of attachment styles. There's secure attachment, which is what we want our relationships to look like. In a secure attachment, we see ourselves in a really positive light. So I'm worthy of love. I am capable of getting the love and support I need. And we see other people in positive ways, meaning that they are reliable and will give us the love we need. And so then in conflict, you're not assuming the worst in your partner. You're assuming that they're wanting to give you love, but they just maybe, miss the mark a little bit. And so you're not reactive. You can kind of quickly repair, and you're really resilient. And then obviously you're able to ask for your needs to be met because you trust that your partner will meet them, and you know that you're worthy of them being met. An important point here is a lot of couples come into couples therapy and think that after couples therapy, I won't ever get into conflict with my partner again. And so I'm really clear with couples right when they start that, hey, conflict is natural and conflict is good for a relationship because it helps us. It makes sure that we are two individual people that are coming together. So we still have different perspectives. We still have different opinions, obviously not on everything, but we are two unique people coming together. And so therefore there's going to be conflict. We just need to learn how to manage it better. So in an anxiously attached person, in EFT, we call this the pursuer. The view of self is negative. So I'm actually unworthy of love. I'm too much. I'm too needy. That's the inner script that they're telling themselves. And the view of other people is positive. So people are capable of meeting my needs. They're trustworthy and they're reliable. However, because I am unworthy of that, they won't meet my needs. They're going to abandon me, right? So I'm negative and they're positive. And so then in conflict, because they have these kind of beliefs, they really will pursue their partner aggressively to make sure that their partner doesn't abandon them. And they don't communicate their needs. At least they don't communicate them effectively because they don't believe that they're actually truly worthy of them being met. And this typically looks like the more escalated partner. So they tend to act out. They tend to say things that they don't mean. They tend to get really big in the relationship. Oftentimes, an anxiously attached person pairs up in relationships with an avoidantly attached person. And that looks, and in an avoidant attachment, you see yourself in a really positive way and you see other people in a negative way. So I am worthy of love and I'm capable of giving love and in getting the support that giving the support and love that I need. However, other people are not trustworthy and they're not reliable when it comes to meeting needs, and therefore they will not meet my needs. So in conflict, these people withdraw. They learn to only rely on themselves because they know that that's the only way they'll get their needs met is through themselves. And they have trouble accessing their emotions and being vulnerable because honestly, they've never had to. And oftentimes in childhood, these people have had negative experiences of sharing their emotion and their parents kind of dismissing it or shutting it down or and just not being a safe place to do that. And then, so anxiously attached and avoidantly attached people often come together in a relationship. And that's majority of the time what we're working with. And then a disorganized attachment often comes from trauma. And with these people, they see themselves in a negative way and they see other people in a negative way. So I'm unworthy of love and I'm incapable of getting my needs met, and other people are unreliable, untrustworthy, and won't meet my needs. So in conflict, it looks very disorganized, which is why it's named that. So it looks like they have a lot of high anxiety because they're fearing rejection. They might start to pursue their partners to try to get their needs met, but then quickly will realize, hold on, what am I doing? I'm unworthy of love and my partner is not able to meet my needs. So why am I trying here? And so they'll quickly withdraw. And sometimes they'll withdraw and then they'll get upset and then they'll pursue. So it looks all over the place, which is a good indicator of you're dealing with something that it comes from some sort of trauma. That's not a hard and fast rule. Again, it's just, you want to know if there is something there. So when we have a pursuer withdrawer, so when we have an insecure attachment, so the avoidant or the the avoidant or the anxious attached people, when they're in conflict, it looks like a negative cycle. And so really this cycle is, you can start anywhere, but if we look at it, if partner A is on one side, so I'll say partner A is on the left and partner B is on the right, and I'll give you an example shortly. But in EFT, we're tracking this cycle out. And in the first part of EFT, we're not going deep into emotion. So can you guys see my pointer? Probably not.
Yes.
Oh, cool, great. Thank you. So we're not going into these softer emotions yet because especially with the high conflict couples, they've been hurt too many times to want to share that they feel alone, that they feel abandoned, unwanted, ashamed, overwhelmed, hopeless. They're not going to go here first. So in the first step of EFT, we're working above this dotted line, and we're saying, okay, so when your partner starts to say something mean to you, how does this make you feel? And I'm not going to go here. I'm going to start here. So it makes you feel angry. And what do you do with that? You shut down. Okay, so when you shut down, how does this make partner A feel? Oh, this makes them feel anxious and rageful. Okay, then what do you do with that? Do you attack more? Likely. And then what does that do to partner B? Partner B will get more frustrated, hurt, and will shut down more, and it just escalates more and more and more. And then there's perceptions, and you'll see this in a second, that kind of bounce off of the emotions and reinforce them. In the second stage of EFT, so in the second part, like after we kind of start de-escalating the couple to where they're able to really be a little bit more vulnerable with each other, we can start diving into these primary emotions, which is ultimately what we're going to want them to do when they're in conflict in the future, which is when you attack, well, when you say this to me, it really makes me feel inadequate. And that makes me feel really afraid, because I'm afraid if I'm inadequate, you're going to leave me, right? And so that obviously is not going to evoke the same response as I'm pissed and shutting down. It's going to evoke a softer response in our partner, and then they'll be able to share, well, I hate that hurt you. Really what's happening for me is I just feel so alone, and I feel so abandoned, and I feel like you don't care about me, right? So we deepen into the softer emotions and these unmet needs, which I will show you in a second. So this is an example. We're going to say partner A, which is on the left, is the pursuer, and partner B is the withdrawer. Partner B, let's say, has a hard time prioritizing the partner over work. So say partner B, they take a 10-hour workday instead of an 8-hour workday, and they're not able to come home for dinner. So partner A might get critical of partner B and will say something to them like, how come you never listen to me? I told you I wanted to eat dinner with you tonight. You're not home in time. This is so upsetting, right? Well, this will toss over into partner B's unmet attachment needs, which is to feel appreciated for their work, to feel adequate, to feel accepted by their partner, to feel like they're enough. And it's going to touch into this sadness, this fear, this inadequacy of, am I ever going to be enough to my partner? Are they ever going to be able to see what I'm trying to do for us? I'm working because I want to set up a life for us. I want to set up a future for us. And yet every time I work, I get yelled at, and I get talked down to. And so with couples, often where they start is they won't know that this is there. So I'm going to help them find what's here underneath what they are originally coming to my sessions with, which is, I'm really frustrated. I'm angry. I'm overwhelmed. Why does my partner always say this, right? My partner doesn't appreciate me. This will never stop. I can't ever get it right. Right. And so they'll want to shut down. So when they shut down, this is going to toss over to the other partner A, and the partner A is going to feel even more sad, even more hurt, even more unheard. And that's going to fuel anger often. And anger bounces off this perception, which says that my partner never listens to me. I never am enough for them. I'm never the priority, right? And then they're going to get more critical and more angry. So in the beginning, we're going to track, okay, so when you notice that your partner doesn't prioritize you, you get angry and you then start getting hostile and you start yelling at your partner. And when your partner receives that yelling, they get tense, they get frustrated, they get overwhelmed, and they start to shut down. And when they shut down, you get more angry because, okay, now they're not listening to me. And then you get more, so then you start yelling even louder, or you say things that you don't mean, like, you're so selfish. How could you, how could you do this to me? And then you're going to shut down more. So the beginning, we're tracking this, and then slowly we go into these softer emotions. And I'll show you how I do that in a second, so that they can eventually just share and in this kind of softer way of how they're actually feeling and relate to each other on this, in this deeper way. So how to get out of this cycle. So when I'm asking my clients to get out of their cycle, I'm asking them to identify, to be able to identify that, okay, I'm taking a step in the cycle. I'm getting hostile. And I know that when I get hostile, my partner shuts down. Okay, so I can't do that. So hold on, we're getting stuck in our cycle. That's naming the cycle. Can we take a break? This is especially important for high conflict couples, because high conflict couples don't have the tools. They're so escalated. There's so many wounds going on that are being triggered that they're not going to be able to sink into the softer emotions unless they take some time apart. And so I say, take a break, put a time limit to it. So I need 30 minutes to just cool down, right? And in that time, they're thinking, what is this softer feeling that in this need that I have? And then I want them to share their softer feelings, their needs, their longings, and try to understand their partner's needs, longings, intentions, instead of making up their own intentions to their partner's behaviors. So when I work with high conflict couples, I'm often acting as a referee, hence the little GIF there, because there's a lot, and they are not afraid to go at each other in a session in front of me, which I appreciate, because because then I can actually see what's happening. So I use several different tools in order to help them kind of soften and de-escalate and then deepen into their softer emotions. First being, I'm going to jump to the second point. First being validating. So every couple is going to come in first with like anger, or high conflict couples specifically are going to come in with feeling pretty much pissed at their partners, really angry. So I'm validating that. Of course, you're feeling angry right now because you really, really want to feel close to your partner. And when your partner goes to work for that extra 2 hours, that gets in the way of your time together, right? So I'm validating that this anger makes sense to me. And then I'm conjecturing a primary emotion, a softer emotion, such as, and I can imagine that also makes you feel really sad. Sad that you don't feel good enough. You feel like you're never, nothing you ever do is going to work, right? And so I'm going, and you'll notice that I'm even doing it now, that I go into this risk where I'm using soft, slow, and simple words, in my clients' words, to really deepen them into their feeling. If I'm just kind of talking to them like I'm talking to you, they're not going to soften. They're not going to soften. They're going to stick with the anger. And then then I'm also going to be repeating this. So you feel really sad. Of course you feel really sad. Of course you feel really alone. Anyone would feel really alone. And I'm using that over and over and over again until they can sink into it. And then a lot of time with withdrawers, since they don't know how to use their, like they don't know how to share emotions very well, I use images. So when your partner is screaming at you, you feel like you're trapped in a room and and you want to open the door, but on the other end of the door, there's a fire and you don't want to let that fire in. And so of course you're going to hop out a window and run, because that's not safe. It's not safe. And everyone knows the doorknob's the hottest part. And the second you open that door, that fire's coming in, right? So you're trying to protect the relationship by just giving it time to cool off, right? And so I'm using images and I'm using all of these tools right here to kind of bring them lower. And then obviously the fourth is blocking conflict and escalation. So when someone's jumping in, when I'm trying to kind of deepen with their partner, I'm saying, hold on, can you give me a second? I really think this is important, what your partner's saying here, right? Or, whoa, let's stop here. Let's slow down. This isn't productive, you guys. And I'm really I'm refereeing. So these are the basic kind of tools that I use with my high conflict couples. But other than that, I'm going through the cycle in the same way that I showed you with that diagram. And then just some basic resources for all of you. Obviously, couples therapy is great because you have the one-on-one interaction, the one-on-one support. So I can actually go into your cycle with you and track out how you individually, like each of your partner's individual triggers and views of self, and how that's impacting actions, and how and just really helping you guys see the cycle as it exists in your relationship. Other than that, Hold Me Tight is a really good way. I will give this as homework if any of my couples want homework. Hold Me Tight is a really good book that helps you kind of breaks down the cycle and helps you give some examples to kind of see, what does this look like for me, right? But if you don't have a therapist helping you, then you're kind of having to think through it yourself, which is totally fine for a lot of people. And then the Hold Me Tight retreats are usually like a couple days, normally a weekend, where obviously a workshop leader is kind of leading you through these things, but you don't get the one-on-one individual attention. So those, they do have their downfalls, but they're a good starting place, and they're a good resource to kind of continue with, to kind of continue the growth that you have. So that is it. I feel like I hit the 20 minutes like almost right.
Oh, you were awesome. That was great. We just want to open up to Q&A from all of our people here listening. I see lots of people clapping, like it's silent clapping, but yeah, please ask questions of Nicole. You have an expert here in front of you for couples work.
I had a question.
Sure.
It's not necessarily couples related. It's not my expertise. And I'm so glad to hear there are people as you who are willing to take that level of, contrast and tension. But I was wondering, how do you know an emotion is primary or secondary? You had it very clear, but I don't know. I would know it. How do you do it?
So that's a really great question, and honestly, it does get confusing. If it's big and it feels reactive, honestly, you have to kind of feel it, right? If it feels reactive, then it probably is a secondary emotion. There's probably something underneath it, right? Most of the time, anger is just a big emotion that tries to hide all the softer and vulnerable emotions, because when you're in a place of anger, you feel powerful, which is a defense mechanism, right? We don't want to feel small and vulnerable. We want to feel powerful. So this anger will get really big and will cover up everything else, so that you don't feel those. So I'm saying, okay, I hear the anger, and I'm soothing the anger, I'm validating the anger, and then I'm saying, what else is there? And then what I often do is I run it through my own body of, they're telling me the context of what's happening, right? I'm running it through my own body, and I'm saying, yeah, I feel angry, but more so I feel really alone. Or more than anger, I feel really sad. More than anger, I feel really afraid, right? So I'm kind of using myself as a resource. And a lot of times, in the beginning, it won't land. So I'll say this, I'll literally say what I just said to you. And they'll be like, I'm not afraid. And I'll say, okay, you're just angry. And so I'll stick with that a little bit more. And then I might kind of chop it in half and say, are you worried? Right? Worried isn't as hard to hold on to as afraid, because it's less intense. Right? And so then they'll say, yeah, I am worried, because I'm worried that if this doesn't change, then what does that mean for us? Okay. So we're getting like kind of, it's still not what's really there, but it's a lot closer. Right? And it's something that the partner can hold on to. So long story short, yes, it is hard. A lot of times with anxiety, I'm like, is this a secondary reactive emotion, or is this a primary emotion? And I have to sit with it a little bit and like kind of dig into it, tell me more about the anxiety in order to kind of understand, is this it? Like, are you just feeling really anxious, or is there a fear here as well? Or is, are other things coming alongside it, right? So that's a great question. Did I answer that well enough?
Yes, I think the way you said it, that you run it through you and kind of you offer what you're picking up, which is quite something, because it can be chaotic when you have a couple. So I see. And then you offer them what you think you picked up. And if they are sort of unsure they want to go that route, you soften it so they don't lose their own safety or whatever.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Great question.
Nicole, do you use like a feeling wheel or something like that to come up with ways to chop it in half? Like, what are the different levels of emotions that you pull from? I mean, I know a lot of experience helps, but for someone who would be like trying to do that, where do you start with that?
Honestly, I did use a feeling wheel to begin. So now it's like in my brain. So I know like there's so much more here that could possibly be here, but I had such a hard time with the secondary and primary because it's a complicated thing. I mean, they can feel so similar, they can look so similar. And especially with high conflict couples, really any couple that comes in immediately, they're saying there's nothing else there. And so I'm like, there's nothing else there. Okay, well, I can't have you share your anger with your partner. We're already doing that at home, and that's not working, right? So I did use a wheel. I can probably find it. But it basically had on the outside some of the the secondary emotions, and then on the inside some of the primary. I can look back for that so that we have that resource.
I'm sure the group would love that. But we probably have time for one more question. Does someone else have a question for Nicole?
I was just curious, when the two parties take a break, is there, and I'm not in your world at all, so I don't know, like, is 30 minutes a good amount of time, or is it more 15 minutes? Or, a lot of times there's like a lot of anger in there, right? So what is your recommendation?
So I feel it out. Every couple is different. It depends on how anxious the pursuer is, because the pursuer is going to want to talk about it right there. Like, you're not leaving my site because we're not done here, right? Because at the core, if you leave, you can abandon me, right? You might realize in that 15 minutes that you don't want to be in this relationship. And so the pursuer wants to hash it all out right then and there. And so if it's the super anxious pursuer, then I do recommend like shorter periods of time. I'm like, okay, so how does 10 minutes feel? Like, let's just enough space to be able to cool it down. And then we can kind of, if that still wasn't effective, then maybe we need to do 15 minutes, but starting out smaller so that they can get used to trusting it, right? That after 10 minutes, my partner will come back, right? And then we can do 30 minutes. And I know that like the 10 minutes, my partner will come back, right? So we just don't want to activate a nervous system more. That's counterproductive. But we do want to give them some space to be able to get a little softer so that it's actually productive when they come back together. It's a great question. I usually don't allow them to do more than an hour, because an hour, you don't need more time. That's just letting the withdrawer withdraw, essentially. So I'll say, you know, if they need a lot of time because they're really, really very high conflict, and 10 minutes is not doing anything and 30 minutes is not doing anything, I say 1 hour, but you guys, you have to come back after an hour. Sometimes they will say they did it, and then we talk about that, but that's a different issue.
Is this when you would recommend like individual therapy too for someone, Nicole, that you're working when you're working with a couple?
Honestly, for a lot of high conflict couples, I do recommend individual therapy at the same time, because there's so much there that I have, essentially, if you break it down, I usually do the whole hour accidentally. I have 30 minutes with each person. And so that's not enough. I mean, I know what could be there, but it's not enough time to really give each person their space to actually feel and process fully what's going on for them. And so if they have their own individual therapist where they can do that, and they can come in and say, this is what, I talked to my therapist and this is what's actually happening for me. Great. Let's use that. Right. And now we just need to talk about your fear of sharing that with your partner right now, instead of talking about the fear of sharing and then figuring out what to share and then sharing.
Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.